I'm Kirk Kaplan with Crest Legal and Accounting. And in this episode, I want to talk about joint revocable living trusts and how they will be divided into two separate trusts after the death of a first spouse. In Nevada, typically speaking, married couples generally create what is called a joint revocable living trust, also typically just said RLT for revocable living trust. Then, after the death of the first spouse, the trust is divided into two parts, representing each spouse's share of the community property and or her share of their separate property. Each of these trusts will then hold that deceased spouse's share of property in trust for the benefit of the survivor, and then after the death of the survivor, for whomever you want to have beneficiaries receive, such as children or a charity, etc. So let's talk a little bit about how this is going to happen after the death of the first spouse. As I said, during life, they create a revocable living trust. Then at the death of the first spouse, the survivor's share receives the survivor's joint property, community property, and hers or his separate property right here. He or she can do with that property in that trust whatever he or she wants. For all intents and purposes, if that surviving spouse wanted to take it down to the Wynn Hotel and place it on the pass line and bet it and lose it all, he or she has that authority and opportunity to do that. The other trust is considered or known as the bypass trust, also known as the Non-Marital Share trust, or known as the family trust. And finally, the credit shelter trust. This trust right here will hold the assets for the benefit of the surviving spouse of the deceased spouse share of the joint marital property. That spouse will be able to receive all of the dividend and interest income and rental income that trust share creates during the life of the surviving spouse, and all income will be distributed to the surviving spouse. If the surviving spouse also needs to have any medical or other be provided for otherwise, he or she will be able to access that trust to provide for his or her benefit. And the best part of the bypass or the credit shelter trust is that it is an asset protection trust for the surviving spouse and for future beneficiaries. Then upon the death of the surviving spouse, all of the assets that are in the deceased spouse's share will go to whomever the deceased spouse designated. Again, children, charities, etc. Today we talked about a joint revocable living trust for married couples in Nevada. If you have any questions about how to make this effective for you, I'm happy to talk to you about that. I'm Kirk Kaplan with Crest Legal and Accounting.